Let's focus today on what women wish men knew about their needs. Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. I want to welcome back Dr. Ramon Presson, the author of When Will My Life Not Suck? Ramon. We're going to tell you in a moment why we're laughing. Thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you for the invite. Again, good to be back for this segment.
Dr. Presson he's a couples therapist. He's been in practice for over 30 years, a relationship communications specialist. Let's focus today on what women wish men knew about their needs, and how we communicate those needs, either good or bad, and where it all goes wrong. Let me throw it over to you. Sure. Where do we start?
Yeah. What immediately came to mind was I can picture and close my eyes and picture this woman in my office. And whether listeners are in boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, she said, "I wish my husband knew how easy it really is to make me happy." She was saying it was really simple things. Simple things are often profound. Simple things make a difference. So one of the core needs that I think that women wish that men understood, and let me just say parenthetically, because it's going to connect to a fear. Any core need that we have in relationship, there's going to be a corresponding fear. For women, the core relational need, not the only, but the core relational need, is to feel connected. And I tell men that women have very sensitive radar that picks up the signals, subtle or not so subtle signals of connection and disconnection. Disconnection is the corresponding fear.
And as you say that, and like, yes, yes, yes. And it's something that men don't understand. They don't really even understand what we perhaps mean by connection or what we feel by connection. And I love what you had here in one of your upcoming chapters is the 3 bridges of connection. I think that explains it really well. Let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. And why I say bridges of connection, I mean, what a bridge does is connect. It's a span between 2 things that are separate. And so sort of thinking of it as, what are the 3 bridges that a man and a woman sort of meet on for connection? Conversation, shared activities, and touch. And I'll talk later perhaps about the different types of touch. It's not just sexually intimate touch. And when I say conversation, I'm not necessarily talking about deep dive, difficult, in case men think that, women just want to, they want me to talk about my feelings and just want to go, deep. And we have these deep, serious, relationship conversations. The bridge to connection is usually, it's just sort of lighthearted and enjoyable conversation.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we get into what exactly that means, because as I read them, that's an aha. You can kind of have an aha moment. I mean, I know this because I'm a woman, but how to explain it to a man that, as you already referenced, that it doesn't have to be a deep conversation, but it's engaging, because men sometimes have a tendency to shut down. But if they just understand that they just talk with us or listen to us, is a great way to connect, right?
Right. Because I want men to know that, particularly for a woman, conversation is connection. It's the primary way that women connect with their own female friends is through conversation. One of the primary ways that for us as guys, we connect with each other is more through shared activities. The conversation often happens during the activity, in the golf cart. But if I understand that for a woman, again, we respond and need all 3, but particularly for her, conversation is connection.
And for men, I guess too, that's one thing women wish men knew. And at the same time, and like you did in the last segment, I think if women understand that they're not being put off, that men don't communicate the way we do, that would be very helpful. I know it's helped me a lot. So to where I'm now, okay, that's what he's doing. He's not ignoring me. It's just, he's a man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the shared activities. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah. Because the question, what does that include?
Mhm.
Shared activities doesn't always mean big extravagant date nights. So one of the things I ask couples to think about: what kind of things do we enjoy doing together? Sometimes those are brief 5-10 minute things, often particularly the things at home. For example, Silke, one of the things that my wife Dory and I enjoy doing, I'm a big fan of couples having kind of rituals. And one of our rituals is that after supper, we have coffee and we do the Wordle, which is this online word kind of game. Just briefly, because I'm a couples therapist, I find people expect me, I think, to be anti-TV for couples. I'm not an advocate of just sitting in front of the TV and just flipping channels.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a shared activity is a good one, is when a couple finds a program, and I hear this all the time, like, that's our show, or we our pizza night and we watch this show. Part of the value of watching a program or a movie is that becomes a springboard for conversation. And guys, for women, conversation is connection. So Dory and I will watch a program like Ted Lasso or something, and we're talking about the plot, we're talking about the characters, we're critiquing the plot, we're imitating the characters, we're reciting lines. The program for us is a connecting activity. It also becomes like this diving board, this springboard into conversation long after the program is over.
Yeah, totally agree. We have that too. It's funny that you said you're, imitating and this. I've learned not to do that during the.
Yeah.
I get the. Okay, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I have a couple, and she's very analytical, and so she's analyzing and predicting what she thinks is going to happen next. And he's like,
He hates that.
Stop.
I was like, why don't we just watch?
Yeah. The third is touch.
Big one.
Even though I know to the question, women want to know, well, what do guys want? And the cliche answer is, we just want sex. And that some research that says man thinks about sex in some form every 20 seconds. For men and women, touch is powerful. I mean, it's literal connection. I talk about that there's 4 types of touch. Casual touch, that's an arm around the shoulder, hand on the knee while we're watching a program, holding hands for a moment, peck on the cheek. Comforting, compassionate affection, playful, a little pat on the bottom, a little tickle, little poke, and then passionate touch. And it's not about slicing the pie in some 4 equal slices. It's when the need or the situation kind of calls for. It's like read the room. I've heard just so often the complaint from women, and I think it's a valid, guys need to hear it, that if the only time that you touch me is in a sexual way, I'm not going to respond to that. You can't expect a woman who feels disconnected emotionally. You've either been rude, or you've been mean, or you've been condescending, or you've been distant, and then think at 10:30 that some kind of switch is going to go on, and she's going to want to be sexually intimate, and that when she's not, doesn't mean you're being punished. It's for her, it's like, I can't get there. That's, you can make that leap, but I'm not wired to make that kind of
that
leap.
that is so huge, the whole touch and what kind of touch, and the contempt that women, and I speak about my own experience in my, like I said, in my marriage, that's obviously ended about 15 years ago. There was all that, I mean, I said that all the time, I knew if he touched me, that what he wanted is like, and I would have nothing with it. No. And just getting that little, a casual touch are so important. Playful touches are so important. And to, expand a little bit on the sexual, is actually non-sexual touch that is so important. I think that's something I would want men to know, the importance of non-sexual touch.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Again, it's the lady who said, I mentioned this at the beginning of our segment, when she said, I wish my husband knew how easy it really is to make me happy. So, when you're sitting and watching a program, for her, a hand on the knee or an arm around the shoulder. And guys, it doesn't mean you've got to hold hands until your fingers cramp up or your hands are sweaty. She doesn't want to hold your hand the whole time. She doesn't want to need your arm around her, during the entire movie. And now your arm's asleep and you can't move it. I often say to guys, all right, you cannot simply, if your relationship depends on simply doing what comes naturally to you,
Mm-hmm.
you will do damage, not intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
But no relationship, just say this as an aside, no relationship can afford for both partners simply to do what comes naturally. Now, this often comes up, but I didn't plan to talk about this, but I often hear this concern. Well, if my partner is doing something intentional, if he's having to remember to do it, if she's having to be intentional, that it's not genuine. So I understand the concern about my spouse loving me from a place of authenticity, but just because I'm being mindful and I'm being intentional about it,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that it's fake, right, or that it's coming from an ungenuine place. In some ways, I think it's even more loving that this doesn't come naturally to me, but I know this is meaningful to you, and I want to bless you. I want you to feel close and connected. I want you to feel loved.
Yeah. Right. And just because it's not natural doesn't mean it's not, as you said, not genuine. It's the intent behind it. If you're doing it because, oh, I know that she's going to like it. Yeah, that's a good intent. Mm-hmm. It might be awkward, but it's a good intent. And it's these sort of, things that, I mean, like I said, we've talked about this so much. We've read about this so much. I don't know if there's an answer to this or not. Why doesn't it sink in? Is it lack of interest on either side?
And I understand this. In the moment, we are most aware of what I'm thinking, feeling, and needing. We can be egocentric without being egotistical. Egocentric means I'm primarily focused on what I think, need, feel, want. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean egotistical. Just being able to step outside of that and, all right, what would my partner find meaningful, helpful, or enjoyable? And usually those are little things. Those are small things. Well,
I'll attest to the fact that, like you said, just a hand on the knee or a quick peck on the cheek or even a slap on the it speaks volumes, to me anyway. And I think to most women, unless it's overdone, or it's so simple. It's so simple if you really think about it, to keep, in that sense, a woman happy. We are starting to come to the end, Raymond, and you have some questions that men can ask themselves to maybe become more conscious of this. Like, when do I make my wife feel disconnected to me? What can I do to help her feel more connected? And what's a tangible first step I can take?
There's two ways that guys can make a woman feel disconnected. Two primary ways. One I would call a passive disconnection. The other one's a more aggressive disconnection. The passive disconnection is going to be expressed and experienced through stonewalling, shutting down, the aggressive disconnection, yelling, cussing, name calling, the things that we would sort of associate with, verbal, emotional abuse. Either one of those is going to, make her feel disconnected. And guys, a woman who feels disconnected, you're going to know about it. If she's shutting down and withdrawing, when a woman's, that core relational need is for connection, and if she is either given up or withdrawing, the relationship's in trouble.
It's not when your wife, screams at you or yells at you or whatever, initiate fights even, that you're in trouble. It's when she stops talking to you. And that is true once you've given up. And a lot of men feel blindsided when that happens, where as women is, well, how could you not know this? It's a whole other discussion. We're come to the end here. I mean, again, we could talk about this forever. I laughed so much at the beginning because I kept calling you by your wrong first name. What I didn't say is that Dr. Presson actually co-authored 3 books with Gary Chapman, the author of The 5 Love Languages. And throughout the start of the segment, I kept calling him Gary Presson. Anyway, a clarification as to why we're laughing so hard at the beginning. Ramon, we'll link to all of your information, your website. And I look forward to another conversation with you, Ramon, on Second Act TV.
Thank you, Soka. I look forward to being with you again. I've enjoyed our conversation today.
Me too. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.